Hello guys, before I start this video, this is a disclaimer that needs to be put up. I usually don't put these types of disclaimers at the beginning of my videos because I'm usually very calm and collective, but there are going to be moments in this video where either me or someone I'm going to be doing a co-op with are going to be yelling throughout this video. If you are in any way sensitive to loud noises or yelling, be sure to either go or put your volume on a place where it's as low as possible. And if you're watching this video at night and you live with other people, be sure to wear some headphones so that way the screaming in the video won't wake anybody in your house. I don't usually yell in my videos because I'm generally very calm when it comes to talking about things, but in this video, who or what I'm talking about rubs me the wrong way to the point where I can't talk about these things calmly, but if you don't mind any of that, continue on. With all that said, enjoy the video. So, I hate this movie. Actually, no. To say that I hate this movie would be the understatement of the century. The appropriate word to use for this review would be that this movie is abysmal. So far in my Sean's Yearly Reviews series, with the exception of Ivan the Incredible, there are no animated films that I've given a 1 out of 10 to. It's either been a 0 or 2. First time for everything, I guess. So, a super progressive movie is a 2026 Australian animated movie that going in, I didn't expect much from going into it. It looked like the standard anti-woke piece of media that you'd see nowadays from right-wingers, no different from what you'd see from either The New Norm or Mr. Bircham. And well, to make this abundantly clear, I'm still going to keep this review as safe as possible, considering the fact that I do want this video to stay on YouTube. But if I do come across as a bit aggressive during this video, that would be because it would basically match the raw anger that I felt when I first watched this movie. So, I watched this movie with a group of friends. Usually during watch-alongs, I don't get that furious with things, and most of the anger that I have showcased in the actual reviews are exaggerated as possible, and whenever I did play up the anger a lot higher than usual, that would be because they basically rubbed me the wrong way, such as with Robot Boy, Ivan the Incredible, Monster Family, and Raya and the Last Dragon. I was actively angry while watching this movie with others. It is abysmal. And it's up there with Ivan the Incredible as not just one of the worst animated movies that I reviewed on my channel, but it's one of the worst things that I reviewed on my channel, animated or not. There's quite a bit to get through in terms of this movie, so I think we should begin with what you might notice right away, and that is the animation. Being as blunt as I possibly can, this movie is trucking ugly. And bear in mind, even though this movie is probably not going to be released in theaters in the United States, at least from what I know, just like Ivan the Incredible, Lewis and the Aliens, and Monster Family, this film was actually able to be released in theaters in its home country, Australia. When, no, this is absolutely unacceptable. I've seen internet animations, specifically from VivziePop and Glitch Productions, that are more worthy of being put on the big screen than this dog turd, and they haven't even made a movie yet. To get things started, every single character in this movie do not look natural in the slightest. Usually in cartoons, they'd often give their characters just black pupils, or whenever they'd give them an eye color, they would, at the bare minimum, make them expressive enough to look appealing, or add a black circle in the middle of the eyes, since, you know, these would be our main characters that we'd spend the majority of the story with. All of the human characters in this movie fall into two categories. They have these white spots in the middle of the eyes, which makes all of them look like aliens that are pretending to be humans, but that would be offensive to aliens, because I've seen aliens in other cartoons and movies that look better than these human characters. Heck, one of the characters that I made is literally an alien. And the reason as to why those characters end up looking better is because they are expressive. Meanwhile, most of the characters in this movie are very stilted, and so as a result, a lot of them end up falling into the uncanny valley. Not helped by the fact that they give all the characters these outlines that match their skin and clothes, which only makes them more unappealing to look at. And there's another subsection section of them that look overly detailed and ugly because herpaderp, we're making something for adults, so it has to look hideous in order to appeal to our demographic. And that last part in particular gave me some feelings that made me dread going into this one. You know, forget that whole if it was written by VivziePop meme. Can we create a new meme that goes all like, if it was trying desperately hard to be like South Park and Family Guy? Because I swear, most adult cartoons that aren't anime, as well as Futurama, Rick and Morty, the works of VivziePop, King of the Hill, or The Simpsons, either try to go the direction of being a comedy that tries way too hard to be shocking like Family Guy, or they try to be South Park by offering visuals that try to out-hideous the last thing that tried to be hideous. But what made South Park work is that the show tries to be topical, so it's done that way on purpose so that they could catch up with current events. Something that got lost in translation with a lot of these shows. A lot of them think that just being shocking and vulgar, as well as looking ugly, inherently means that they're for adults, but they're actually very childish. A lot more childish than most shows made for the 6 to 11 demographic. For the most part, anime doesn't have to do this. They know how to be adult without needing to do what most other adult cartoons do. And do you want to know why Knights of Guinevere is so good? Dana Terrace knew how to make a cartoon for adults and was subtle about it. And I'm very excited to see what they're going to do in that show next. And in terms of lazy adult animation that spams shocking content because it's for adults, a super progressive movie is no exception to this. So many sequences in this movie just puts focus on either something inappropriate happening or something incredibly violent would end up happening to an innocent animal. At the beginning of this movie, they have an incredibly cringe-inducing sequence where this trans woman, Daisy, dances for Pete in an incredibly suggestive manner, and I went all like, don't show that to us, movie. We'd rather see another female character do that instead. And there's also an entire sequence where a bunch of animals are getting killed for no other reason than for shock value, and that it's for adults. And you know how I said that Monster Family had the worst humor out of any animated movie that I reviewed for Sean's yearly reviews so far? No. This movie is the bottom of the barrel of comedy. This movie is literally a black hole of comedy where, no joke, none of the jokes that this movie tells is either funny, endearing, or witty. Every single moment in this film is just them pandering to conservatives and anti-woke people, and I can't believe I'm actually using these words on my channel, in ways that make this movie infuriating to get through. And this movie thinks that it's so clever by taking a lot of these words literally, with an entire city being surrounded by a bubble, and the plot literally revolving around them trying to get an actual victimhood. But with how abysmally executed that this movie is, this comes across as the movie doing nothing but telling god-awful puns. And when you combine it with how blatantly offensive and hateable that this movie is, it basically does nothing but rub salt all over an open wound. In the past, I had it in my mind that there are some products out there that feel like they're deliberately trying to make their viewers angry, most notably with Robot Boy, but that's literally what a super progressive movie feels like. Every single sequence feels like it's going out of its way to make the viewers angry, from the dialogue to the characters to even the tone of the film. The film is racist, sexist, homophobic, ableist, is an assault on your senses, and would offend animal lovers. And by the way, this isn't one of those movies where it's trying to make fun of animated cliches. This movie is actually trying to tell a plot. And before any defenders of this movie start coming into my comment section trying to pull the "it's just comedy" or "it's trying to do a parody of politics" excuse, if this movie is trying to unironically do this while telling this plot, the movie is entitled to all the criticism that it gets. But even then, it is such an unbearable black hole of comedy. Not just because every single sequence has these characters saying anti-woke stuff, like literally saying words like mansplaining, manspreading, or any cringy thing that you'd see anti-woke people say on a regular basis, but this movie never shuts up! It is nothing but constant noise, characters constantly yelling, and speaking in these inflections that would get its viewers to become irritated immediately. The opening narration is spoken in such a nasally and obnoxious way that I actually said, "Shut up!" And the disgusting amount of offensive content that is put into this movie really does put this movie in that special category of abhorrent. Like, for Sean's Network and yearly reviews, while Ivan the Incredible and Powerpuff Girls 2016 are far worse than in this movie. You could argue that they didn't intend for all of those rotten elements to be present in those products. Those were more out of incompetence rather than something that is actively malicious. I just hate them more because Ivan the Incredible's message could do actual harm to someone, and Powerpuff Girls 2016 had all of the stuff present in that show happen to canonically underage characters. A super progressive movie knows exactly what it's doing. The film is sexist towards both men and women, where it goes out of its way to say that Pete is misogynistic because he didn't compliment Daisy doing that suggestive dance in front of him, which could come across as offensive to those that are either asexual or a virgin, and that because one of the other characters is going with Pauline to try and get past the bubble to stop Pete while he was being possessed by the victimhood, Daisy assumes that he's going out with her because he has a massive crush on her. Because yeah, wanting to get laid is all that men think about. Also, an extra truck you to you movie, this transphobic spit in the face to trans people does not deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as the Mario character of the same name. And the film is also sexist towards women as well. Daisy's boyfriend literally says that a woman should not fight alongside a man and that only the man can fight in a battle. And if you thought that Jeffy from SML or the film by Sia named Music was offensive to disabled people, there's literally this one lawyer character that pretends to be disabled in order to stall the judge in the courtroom, and he literally calls himself the R word multiple times. Were parts of this movie written by Mr. Horse? And all of these things are only like the cherry on top of the sundae with how bad that this movie is. Not a single character in this movie is remotely likable. The only one that I do feel some sympathy towards is Pete, and that's mainly because of the fact that he gets treated horribly throughout the movie. He's literally just a gender-flipped Meg Griffin, a character that's beaten around so much that you wonder why they didn't snap much sooner. Almost getting up to the point where the characters feel like they're about to say, "Shut up, Pete." But even in Family Guy, those Meg Griffin getting beaten around scenes are often portrayed as quote-unquote jokes, even though they eventually got up to the point where they began telling abuse victims that they should stay in their abusive relationship for their abuser's benefit. Pete getting beaten around is actually integral to the plot, to the point where he becomes the villain in this movie, as he ends up being the one who claims the victimhood for himself and is actually justified in being angry with everyone because of how bad that he gets treated throughout the film. But not once did they ever realize that, yeah, they treated him abysmally. How is it that the victimhood actually makes for a more likable character in this movie than these secondary and main characters? There's literally a sequence where all of them make Pete carry their things across a bridge, but their things put so much weight on him that the bridge ends up breaking, and then all three of them have the audacity to get mad at Pete for losing their things, even though they should have carried their own things in the first place. And they're more concerned about him losing their things than the fact that he could have lost his freaking life! And Uncle Murray is literally the worst character in this entire movie. Not only does he mistreat Pete like most of the other characters in this film, but he just takes things beyond just mistreating someone. He doesn't help Pete when he was about to be attacked by someone. When he decides to take measures into his own hands, he literally steals a cop car in order to get to his location, and when his city was in danger, he was entirely willing to leave it behind to suffer, going so far as to let Pauline get killed before having to be forced to go and save her. So that redemption was not genuine at all. And unlike Chumsley from Gabby's Dollhouse the movie, where he was supposed to be a villain that got redeemed at the last second, Uncle Murray is supposed to be a character that we're supposed to like, but I just can't. And the movie decides to literally redeem him at the very last moment, despite doing absolutely nothing to deserve it. Like, he didn't even want to save anyone at all. The only reason as to why he goes to save them is because the ghost forced him to do this. When the reason as to why Pete ends up acting the way he does around the third act while wearing the victimhood was partly his fault to begin with, because they did nothing but mistreat him throughout the film, not even giving him a trucking apology at the end, being more concerned over the fact that he lost his limbs than how he and the others treated him. And Pete is also not given any sort of apology by anyone for this. So overall, this movie is definitely one of the worst movies that I've ever reviewed on my channel, animated or not. The only thing that keeps this away from being Ivan the Incredible levels of bad is the extra thing that the film did where they blatantly said that you should let yourself get bullied. But make no mistake, this movie and Ivan the Incredible are very close in terms of quality. The film is abysmally executed, the humor is unbearable, it is obnoxious with its constant use of anti-woke language and characters speaking and annoying inflections. There are literally no likable characters whatsoever, and it has so much content that is offensive to the point where no amount of defenses that you could give it by saying that it's just trying to make you laugh can be able to salvage this movie.
Coming up next is... Hey, that's not Simba!
Everything